Hey bro, kick that baby and make sure it gets rabies. What's good, y'all? Soul here, and welcome back to the story mode. So, as of a couple of days ago now, and something you're gonna hear me say quite a lot over the next coming days, is that we just recently received our first ever actual gameplay trailer for Pokemon Legends ZA. In said trailer, we got a lot of interesting information in regards to what kind of game this is gonna be. We met a ton of new characters, saw a lot of different environments, saw how the wild Pokemon and wild areas are gonna work this time around, and that's all really exciting and dandy. However, in my personal opinion, the biggest and most interesting change probably has to be the battle system. Traditionally, every mainline Pokemon game up to this point has utilized turn-based combat. You run into a wild Pokemon or a trainer, you throw out your Pokemon, and you start the battle by picking your move, and then your opponent picks their move, and then back and forth until somebody dies. Even in Pokemon Legends Arceus, the first most experimental mainline game in the series by far, used turn-based combat still. Like, yeah, getting in and out of battles was quick and very seamless, but if I really wanted to in the middle of battle, I could just stop and go get a snack or something and come back, and nothing will have changed. But all of a sudden, they decided to go ahead and just pull the rug out from under us. Somebody up at Pokemon Company must have been playing a lot of Persona 5 because you know what? No, I did not see this coming. So now, for our mainline game, Pokemon Legends ZA, in the later half of 2025, we will be working with real-time combat for the first time in a mainline Pokemon game. Now, me personally, I'm not gonna hide the fact that I am absolutely ecstatic for this. Trust me, I love turn-based RPGs, and I think it's thanks to Pokemon that that's the case. However, I think that this is going to be a nice change of pace. Now, I already know for a fact that not everybody is going to agree with this change. I can imagine a couple of reasons as to why that is. Hey, you know what? You've read the title, so why don't we start getting into things here? So most of you already know how it goes by now. Why don't you go ahead, grab a seat, grab a nice cool drink. Maybe it's breakfast time for you, so may I recommend a nutritional meal of maybe some eggs mixed in with some sausage, and throw that into a boiling pot of ranch while we talk about the positives and negatives of real-time combat in Pokemon Legends ZA. Now, we are going to go through the positives first before the negatives. However, there's something I want to mention first. Just a mere 7 months ago, when we were still in the midst of drought when it came to Pokemon news, I made a very particular video. I literally asked, in the title, if real-time combat could work for mainline Pokemon. I made a lot of different points grabbing examples from Pokken Tournament, from Pokepark 2, and even a fan game called Pokemon Reloaded. The long and short of it is, I came to the conclusion that it simply wouldn't work and would probably never happen. I simply figured it would be way too much work for a team like Game Freak to implement when they're still working on a million different things to perfect the mainline games as it is. Now let me just say this really quick. I have never in my life been happier to be wrong. Some of my favorite games of all time are action RPGs. By technicality, my favorite action RPG of all time is Kingdom Hearts. However, if we want to get a little closer to home, Xenoblade Chronicles is definitely up there as well. Definitely took a little bit of time for me to truly understand what kind of game Xenoblade was, because when I first picked it up, I did not enjoy it. However, I gave it another chance, really let myself try to understand the combat, and it easily became one of my favorite RPG series of all time. So seeing Pokemon in a style anywhere near similar to Xenoblade Chronicles makes me absurdly happy. You have genuinely no idea. So I'm sure that there's a couple of you out there that has a little question lingering in the back of your mind. Why now? Why all of a sudden, for Pokemon Legends ZA, did they decide that this was the time to attempt real-time combat when we've had turn-based combat forever now? Well, I might have a little bit of an answer for you. Pokemon Legends has become something of an experimental title. It's a safe way for them to make mainline games that are also allowed to do something that mainline generational games cannot do. Simply put, the Legends titles are a way for them to throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks with us. What kind of mechanics can we implement in this game very specifically? What kind of stories can we tell that isn't just the new guy on the block becoming a trainer? Utilizing these titles, we can go back to other regions and maybe we can explore more lore and older mechanics this way. You get what I'm getting at here? With Legends ZA as proof, the Legends title has become the developer's playground a little bit. Some ideas, mechanics, and story elements could pass over to the next generational title of Pokemon, but 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be anything so crazy that it changes the main core idea of Pokemon forever. This right here is its own thing. Hence why I highly doubt that we're gonna get something like real-time combat in Generation 10 of Pokemon. They probably won't do that. But you know what? That's fine by me, because as long as Legends is a series, that means that real-time combat could always potentially come back, and that's something I am extremely happy about. Okay, now that we've said all that, why don't we go ahead and start talking about the positives and the negatives of real-time combat in Legends EA, starting with the positive side of things. The first major positive, in my personal opinion, is the fact that the combat is going to be more engaging. Now, of course, again, not that there's anything wrong with traditional turn-based combat. Setting up strategy can be fun in its own right. However, if it is my job now to keep me and mine alive in whatever I'm doing, and I have to consistently be moving on my screen to make that happen, I'm gonna be a lot more invested in what's happening. I'm sure a lot of people would be extremely surprised as to how many people cannot stand turn-based combat because of that fact. Couldn't be me though. I love both of these concepts for exactly what they are. However, if we're being completely honest, throwing me into a situation where I'm constantly moving, constantly dodging, having to constantly pick my attacks on a whim, transforming in the heat of battle to get the edge over my opponent, in a situation where my attack may land first, yeah, I'm definitely gonna be a lot more invested in that battle. I mean, I don't have to tell you that there's just something a little more exciting about actually being in the genuine heat of battle. One of the reasons why the boss fights in Pokemon Legends was so cool is that you actually had to be on your toes for all of their attacks. Get hit by too many of those and you might be in some actual genuine danger. And in this case, you might actually lose the entirety of the battle and some money if you're not careful. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a lot more stressful, but fun. It's so funny. I always think about the possibility of a lot of action games being RPGs and a lot of RPGs being action games. Like, I would absolutely love and adore it if Kirby or Zelda got an RPG, but I'm extremely happy that our RPG series Pokemon finally has an action RPG. Call me crazy, call me insane, but I definitely find myself getting a lot more hype when I'm actually a part of the battle. And when it comes to Pokemon, that finally seems to be the case, so we'll see how things play out, but I'm really happy about that. The next positive, and this kind of bleeds into what I was saying previously, but quicker and more seamless battles than ever. Not that Pokemon battles took all that long to begin with, but now that we're actively controlling the Mon and we don't have to wait for the Pokemon to throw their move out, we are actively planning out our next attack and our next dodge while they're throwing out their moves. Yeah, these battles are gonna go by like nobody's business. And honestly, in this day and age, that's a very good thing for investment, because I can definitely see myself and a lot of others spending a lot of time going around and doing everything this game has to offer, because all of our time isn't being taken up by turn-based battles. Not that Pokemon battles ever took that long or anything like that, except in the case of like Gen 4, where the health bar like inched down at the pace of a snail, but that's not what we're talking about. The faster I can get through a battle, the faster I'm getting to the next one. The faster I'm getting to the next one, the more time I'm spending on the game. The more time I'm spending on the game, the more I'm probably enjoying myself. You know what I mean? Faster does not necessarily equal better, by the way. I want to make that very clear. I just think that personally, it's going to be a lot of fun to feel this literal change of pace. The next thing that I have written here that I personally find to be a positive is the fact that it adds a little more skill. Not that setting up your Pokemon and utilizing the proper moves in succession doesn't count as its own set of skill. However, the way we utilize Pokemon battles now is going to change drastically once you add in the fact that we have to be constantly moving and consistently thinking of what move is going to work best next. This Pokemon's Hyper Beam is probably going to get a devious lick on me right now. Do I want to dodge out of the way? Do I want to go on the offensive and see if I can't hit something nasty first? Or do I want to protect myself and get as much defense up as I possibly can so that when I do have a free moment, I can get in on it. Now, ironically, that process of thought works for regular Pokemon just fine. However, in the situation of an action RPG like this one, that train of thought has to be processed in like a split second. Your knowledge of movement, your opponent, and the moves that you have available to you in that moment are going to become critical at a moment's notice. And because of that, it puts skill and strategy hand in hand. And that's going to be so sick. So sick to implement. Maybe your preferred forte is action RPGs, so you might actually thrive much more in this environment than any standard traditional Pokemon game. Cause I'll be honest, as much as I love strategy-based games, turn-based RPGs and all, I'm not the best at them. I enjoy them a lot, but action RPGs are where I really shine. So just the thought of being able to utilize the skill that I've built up over the years playing a ton of different action RPGs, again, amongst my favorites, is going to be really exciting to implement into Pokemon. So that has me giddy as hell, bro. And then my final positive that I have listed here for now is the fact that having the game set up this way opens up the possibilities of so many different scenarios to happen. Imagine a situation in which you're fighting the enemy team and all of a sudden, like 10 to 20 of them ambush you with a bunch of different Pokemon. So guess what? Now that all happens at the same time. So now you gotta lock the hell in, get the right Pokemon out, and start slaughtering en masse. So basically kind of what they wanted to try and do with Scarlet and Violet, but potentially a lot better. If done correctly, of course. I always think about that one episode of Pokemon Generations where Brendan broke into a Team Magma base, slaughtered the hell out of that Golbat, and just jumped over it with him and his Sceptile. I want the game to feel like that, and I feel like if they do this correctly, Legends EA could feel as close as possible to that scenario. I want that so incredibly badly, you have no idea. You get what I'm getting at? It's the energy that I want. But regardless of fighting like the small-time grunts and even like the leaders and stuff like that in traditional battle, the boss fights are going to be crazy. Do you understand that? They have the opportunity to make any major boss battle and any major legendary fight that we get into in this game feel extremely epic, and I'm so extremely ecstatic for that. But let me simmer down a little bit because that's not a guaranteed possibility. It's just something that could be a possibility. I'm just saying that the floodgates are open, and if they took any real inspiration from the boss battles that we had in Legends Arceus, we have a really sick ass game on our hands, bro. Anyhow, that just about does it for the positives. Now I'm gonna flip it over to the negatives, and keep in mind, you may not agree with me, and that's totally okay, but you know, this video was mine, and so I'm gonna share my opinion. Feel free to disagree though. All that being said, my first real negative is the fact that we still control the trainer for some reason. Now, looking at it more, the idea has grown on me, and it makes plenty of sense that we're still the one throwing out the commands and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's really weird that the trainer in of themselves is going to be like on the battlefield dodging the attacks of a trainer's Pokemon, because they don't seem to be doing that. The AI ain't doing all that, but I have to? That's super weird. When you think of a real-life Pokemon battle, you think of the anime where two trainers are on separate sides of the battlefield and the Pokemon are in the middle, tearing it up themselves. The trainer ain't dodging alongside them. In the world of Pokemon, battling is a certified sport, so it would be really dangerous for the person to also be on the field with the Pokemon. So why is that happening now? In the wild areas, that makes plenty of sense. But we all saw the trailer, so it clearly didn't just stop there. We were dodging a rollout from that Tepig. Why am I on the battlefield? What is happening? I don't know. To me personally, for lore purposes, it just doesn't really make any sense as to why I'm on the battlefield. But you know what? We haven't had the game yet, so I'm sure maybe they'll have an explanation as to why the trainers themselves are also on the field. Very odd. The next thing that I have listed here isn't confirmed or anything, but I have my suspicions that it's a very likely possibility that we're not gonna have held items or abilities again. I can definitely see a situation in which when they decided to go ahead and pitch this new style of battle, they figured, you know what, we already didn't have abilities and items in the first game because we were experimenting with so much that it would probably just make more sense to just not bring that back here either. It would completely throw the balancing out of whack, and a lot of different items would probably be useless because of how battle works this time around. Abilities I'm kind of on the fence about, but I'm kind of leaning towards no on that too. Yeah, having sturdy would be cool and all, but it would be twice as annoying if my opponent is actually genuinely dodging my attacks all the time. I finally land what should have been a one-hit KO, and they don't die. I don't know. I feel like it throws the balancing completely out of whack. Now, of course, I could be wrong about this, and I would be glad to be wrong. I would love to have abilities and items work with this style. However, I just feel like that's a lot of work to balance, and I don't think they went out of their way to do all that with an experimental game like Legend ZA. There is a very specific reason as to why I feel this way, but that's going to be the last thing on the list, so I'll explain that in a moment. The next concern that I have is the fact that some Pokemon will simply be blatantly better than others, and it's not going to be close whatsoever. For example, if I have the option to choose between Machamp and Lucario, there's a good chance that I'm gonna choose Lucario over and over and over again because A, I mean obviously it has Mega Evolution, but B, it seems to be a lot faster on the field, and that seems to be something that's probably gonna be really critical this time around. I mean, sure, there is some benefit and strategy to having and utilizing heavier set Pokemon on your team, like Hippowdon or Onix or something like that, as showcased in the trailer. However, you could definitely dodge a lot more and still hit pretty damn hard with a Pokemon like Lucario. Again, I don't know how much balance work has been put into this game, and I'm not sure that that's going to matter too much, but I do see a situation in which some Pokemon could be easily overlooked because they don't have abilities or anything to help with the upkeep to help them fight on par with some of these other Pokemon that would blatantly be better for your team. In reality, I guess that's always been the case for Pokemon. There are just some Pokemon that are just blatantly better, but I feel like in this case, it's going to be a lot more prominent. After all, that was for sure the case in Pokemon Legends Arceus, so I feel like it's going to get a lot worse here. Or better, depending on how you look at it, but I'm just saying, Skitty, don't even bother. Now for the last thing that I have written here, and the thing that kind of ties into the problem with not having held items and abilities most likely, is the fact that we're probably not going to have online capabilities, really. Again, I very much pray that I'm wrong on this one. I really want to have online capabilities. Don't get that twisted. Don't quote me on this, but it seems like at the very least, sometimes they try to keep the balancing consistent when it comes to online play, which is why I feel like having this style of gameplay would not really work for online play. Again, I would love to see it and battle against my friends in this style, but I just don't really see it working out. I don't really see them going out of their way to make that happen. Pray to Shinx that I'm wrong on this, by the way, because I would absolutely love to go toe-to-toe with my friends, playing with the most devious Pokemon ready to fight, you know what I'm saying? Legendaries on the field, dodging attacks and stuff like that, sending out the most craziest, oh my goodness. Could you imagine how hyped those battles would be? I feel like we'd be a lot more invested in Pokemon if we had it like that, but I don't know, I could be crazy. Long and short, don't think that it's impossible, don't really think that it's too likely. Other than that though, it seems I have hit all my points for this topic. Regardless of what I'm nervous about when it comes to this mechanic, I am ecstatic to utilize it. I am so excited for this gameplay change that I literally cannot stand it. Like, waiting is going to be a beast because I cannot wait to fight wild Pokemon, to fight trainers, and to fight these big ass bosses like Zygarde in real time. It's going to be so exciting that I cannot stand it, and I really cannot wait to see what they bring to the table. I personally think that this is probably one of the most exciting changes they've brought to Pokemon in general, but hey, you know what? Maybe that's just me. So that just about wraps it up for this one. I cannot wait to get my hands on this game, and this battle style is going to be immaculate. Or maybe it's going to be awful. I really don't know, but I kind of doubt it. Like, I really kind of doubt it. Based on what they've shown, yeah, I think it's going to be a really good time. But I guess we'll play it by ear. But that's enough out of me. I'm passing the mic over in your direction. I want you guys to tell me everything that you're thinking. Do you feel the same way as me? Do you think that the positives are positive and that the negatives truly are negatives? Do you think that this is going to be one of the greatest additions they've made to the Pokemon series by far, and that this is going to be a really fun mechanic and gameplay style to play around with? Or are you not a fan of this? You prefer the turn-based style that we've always had. They really should not have touched that, and it was an absolute mistake, and they are going to regret this and rue the day. Tell me everything that you guys are thinking in the comment section below, because you know for a fact that I am always going to be down there with you guys. But with that, yes sir, it does appear to be skedaddle o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I would like to thank you guys ever so much for watching. I truly do hope you enjoyed. Do me the greatest favor of dropping a like and a comment, and consider subscribing for more content just like this here. And with that, I'm gone. So thanks again, hope you enjoyed, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do me the greatest favor, taking good ass care, and I'll see you all next time.